Hello, I'd like to welcome Mark to the video cast now. Hello, Mark, how are you?
Hi, Steph. Yes, I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, keeping well during the pandemic.
So you're in London at the moment?
Yeah, I'm just in my studio, which is separate from my house, but it's next to where I live. So I'm just managing to do a bit of work in here for the time being.
Great. Well, I just wanted to ask you some questions really about yourself as a composer, and to ask you to tell us a bit about the music that you would have played this year at the Vale of Glamorgan Festival. Because the piece is from Five Memos, isn't it? Which is a piece you wrote in 2015.
Yes, 5 years old now. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so the original piece, the whole piece, was a work for violin and piano commissioned by London Music Masters. And the starting point for the piece was this a book by Italo Calvino, which is a set of lectures that he was due to give at Harvard University. He was due to give 6 lectures on the subject of literature, but unfortunately he died before he was able to deliver the lectures, and there are only 5 in existence. And so my piece is a response to the 5 lectures that he would have given.
I think one of the most amazing things about the piece as a whole, which is just incredible, is that you wrote it after you'd written the hugest, most expansive piece. It was just after you'd done a Violence of Gifts for BBC National Orchestra of Wales, which is the culmination of your residency with them.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I remember talking to you about that piece back in the just before the premiere. Yeah, so that was a big 40-minute piece for chorus and orchestra and 2 soloists, which I spent around at least 18 months writing and longer thinking about the piece and planning it. And then straight after writing that piece, I had this commission to write, something on a much more intimate scale. Actually, it turned out to be quite an expansive piece. It's around 20 minutes in total, between 15 and 20 minutes, I think. But yes, in terms of the structure, it's 5 short movements and a much more sort of intimate dialogue between the piano and violin. So it was quite a nice antidote, really, to having written such a lot of music in the period before.
Yeah, and that because the cantata is for such huge forces, and of course, chorus and soloists as well. But what strikes me as amazing is that somehow you've captured that huge scale drama and you've compressed it so beautifully. The elements of, actually, there's a kind of feeling of you're still on a journey of questioning art, culture, society, all these actually rather huge philosophical ideas actually do come up in Five Memos, just as they had done in a very different way in A Violence of Gifts.
That's right. I mean, the original, the text that inspired me is, it's an extremely wide-ranging text, considering it's a set of essays on literature, really designed for literature students. It's incredibly wide-ranging, and it's a very unusual book, really, of literary criticism. It's not so much a textbook about literary criticism as an insight into Calvino's work himself. And each lecture crosses huge sort of subjects and sort of easily crosses these enormous terrains. And so from a musical point of view, there's a lot to draw on within the work. And the movement that has been recorded, the middle movement, Exactitude, has all sorts of allusions within it. In this essay, he talks about, well, actually he starts with talking about the Italian word vago, which is an adjective that might mean attractive and wandering as well as vague. And he contemplates all sorts of ideas within that lecture: night, darkness. He talks about infinity, fear, pleasure, and he sort of treads really lightly across all of these subjects. But yes, it does lend itself to making quite an expansive piece of music in that sense.
Mm. And it's an amazing work, and it was honoured, I think it was 2015, with the RPS awards that you
It was a British Composer Award. Yeah,
oh,
so.
British Composer Award. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it was really nice to have it recognised in that way. It was a really enjoyable project because it was working closely with the musicians, but also with the charity London Music Masters, who do amazing work with young children learning to play string instruments in South London, where I live. So the project, as well as writing it, came with education projects from primary schools. So it's a really lovely project to work on. So it was nice to have it, all the work that everyone had put into it, really, to have it recognised at the British Composer Award.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was, of course, had been selected by the ISCM, and you'd been selected, therefore, to represent Wales at the ISCM this year. So it must have been absolutely gutting that, obviously, in the current crisis, that was all cancelled, and it was going to take place in New Zealand this year, wasn't it?
That's right. It was, yeah, it meant a lot to me that it had been selected for that, because I've been involved with the ISCM for a number of years, both as a board member and then chairing the British section. And it was during that time that I was involved in the Welsh section being set up. And I've never submitted my own work for the ISCM because I've always been on that other side of it. So when I stepped down a few years ago, it was a really nice opportunity to actually be able to put my work forward. So yeah, I was quite excited about New Zealand this year, but the festival's only been cancelled, I think, twice, in 1940 and maybe 1943 or 44, because of the Second World War. But actually, since 1922, the festival has run every single year. So it's a real shame that this year it had to be cancelled, like so many festivals, like every festival. But yeah, it will be back next year, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it would have been fantastic to hear it at the Vale of Glamorgan Festival. So hopefully at some point in the future live. But for the moment, we're going to be seeing the most extraordinary sort of double video cast of Robin Green and David Adams playing it in separate locations, which is absolutely amazing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yes, it's amazing. I saw the video myself just a couple of days ago, and I'm just amazed by the way they've put it together when they're not in the same room, and just how beautifully they've interpreted the piece. It's really a thrill to be able to see it come to life in this completely different way. Yeah.
Well, Mark, thank you ever so much. And without further ado, let's hand over to those guys to hear the middle movement Exactitude of Five Memos.
you.